Now, this is really the time to push this button.
Big picture.
Big picture time, because Mr. Darren Rovell of Action Network HQ has officially joined us. Darren, how are you, sir?
I'm alive. I mean, there's been a lot of work going on, but
you're a busy man these days.
I am good. I am here.
Yeah, man. You are. So when you've been traveling, you travel for much of these stories, like the Cardporn story. Obviously involved all the way, things happening in Australia. You didn't go to Australia or anything, right?
I did not go to Australia, though. That is not out of the question.
Oh man, go to Australia and find one. Find him.
We'll see. I am committed to this story, but traveling for other things or for the Action Network. Today's the start of the NFL season, so doing that while trying to do this story, which has taken on a life of its own.
Absolutely. And that's kind of, what we wanted to talk about today is maybe what I thought what you would do is give a breakdown of the story first. And if you guys haven't had a chance, you want to read it for yourselves over on actionnetwork.com. It's the title of this it's very catching as well. I like if you came up with that title, it's very nice. Michael Jordan, Banksy, and how a collectibles watchdog turned into a fraud. That was the name of the article that just came out yesterday. Maybe give a little rundown, because I know many of us know of Cardporn as the Instagram account. They were kind of like, they would make posts about scammers. They would call out things that they've deemed as unfair, and they seemed like nice guys to the general hobbyist. But obviously, there was always the anonymity factor that I know Mike specifically, he always had an issue with, and he never really cared for Cardporn. I like to give him the benefit of the doubt, which obviously I was proven very wrong about. At this point in time, what have we found out about Cardporn Juan Garcia and the actions he has taken over the last couple of years that you know about?
Yeah, so it kind of just all unraveled for him. The fact that we know he bought this Jordan jersey, in the gray flannel auction. For some reason, My Gray didn't know he got it from there. But it was then presented. My Gray had previously failed to come up with any photo matching to the person who was the consignor of that jersey. So that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. It's just that they had to be presented with new photos. Those new photos were, quote unquote, presented from the Tony Ramsey Foundation. This photographer actually did really exist. He died years ago, but then there was this foundation. The hobby obviously didn't like the photo match. My Gray said it at least matched the two pictures, but there was also this, this evidence of, if you look at even grainy photos, it did not look like the jersey from a matching standpoint. So the hobby was questioning it, and I just wrote a story on that.
And My Gray, just for those who don't know, is like they are like kind of the go-to for jersey authentication in the hobby. Is that right?
Yeah, photo matching. They have the NBA deal. They have official deals.
Okay. So when they came out and said, "Yeah, this is legit," that's a big deal.
Yes. And then they issued a second statement saying they do believe it's legit, even though some photos are inconclusive. I don't know how far. I wrote that story. I don't know how far I was going to go. And then I feel like they poked the bear a little bit by the next day. I got a weird email from this person named Brittany from the Tony Ramsey Foundation. It was a 4-page email. It basically talked about how they thought that I was unfair unfair to the late Tony Ramsey. Again, seems a little bit weird.
Very
how
weird.
a photographer would have a foundation. And to maintain a photo archive, it's like $20,000-$30,000 a year just to maintain. Are there really that many people? Not to insult him, but are there really that many people looking for Tony Ramsey photos? There's just things that it failed.
Yeah,
and it sounded like it was coming from a collector. So I challenged and said, "Hey, Brittany, can you get on a Zoom with me right now?" And they said, "No, we'd like our lawyer to be involved." They said, "Oh, you could bring the lawyer on." And then it went dark, and I was like, yeah, this is not right. So then I started looking at when the Tony Ramsey Foundation started. They said they were around for like 15 years. Their website was started 2 weeks ago. And then it really started to unravel from there, that it was just like a real case of fraud, where every part of this process was was jerry-rigged to actually create a situation. And then, not surprisingly, MyGray does what they have to do and figures out the photos themselves were doctored so that they could match the photo. And we're off to the races. And
at this point, so you've uncovered that. You came out with the article that disclosed all this information. And when is it that you start putting things together about like who's running the foundation, the Tony Ramsey Foundation, and then tying in Cardporn, aka Juan Garcia?
So my idea was like, let me look up his children. Like, let me see where his children are. He had 4 children. It's hard to get numbers sometimes, but I was able to get the cell phone number of his son. I called it at midnight. He was working. He works in cybersecurity, which is ironic.
Yeah.
And he at the time was like 3 hours into saying, what the hell is happening here, before I got to him. So he knew right away that there was something up. He said, my dad doesn't have a foundation. My dad did not organize photos. He did not have any sort of archive. He's very disorganized, actually. And I'm like, oh my God, this whole thing is a house of cards.
Wow.
And then, and so we knew it was Juan Garcia, but we also knew it was Juan Garcia who went into MyGray, because he actually had a video of a Kobe jersey and the Jordan jersey that he then took down. So we knew MyGray wouldn't tell me it was definitely Juan Garcia in MyGray, but he's from Australia and he placed himself in MyGray. So like the question is, and then the other thing that happened after that was he had the audacity he wants to be private, but he had the audacity to go to the National. And enough people know who he is, right? Nat Turner knows who he is. Ken Golden knows who he is. Enough people know what his real name is. Enough.
Oh, that was when he came up to me and introduced himself at the National. That's where, like,
did he say his name was Juan Garcia?
Yeah, he introduced himself as Juan Garcia to me. Yeah, to me at least, because that was the whole thing, is because it was maybe a week before we went to the National that someone reached out to us. I don't want to say who, but someone reached out to us and said they knew who Cardporn was, and they said the guy's name is Juan Garcia, and they said they didn't care for him, but they didn't go into any explanation or anything like that. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I know Mike doesn't care for him, but Mike really, it wasn't anything like, we hadn't heard any of the other of this story, of course, or any of the other story that we'll go into. But at the National, when he came up to me and introduced himself, it was because at the time we had like said a few things, like we had gone back and forth in DMs, and then even publicly on some posts, we had said some stuff about trade nights and how we thought, like, what the people behind the National were doing to shut down a lot of trade nights was unfair. And he was like saying to us, like, stop talking about it. He was trying to be the good guy, basically. And Mike and Mike had called him out a few times. And I was trying to stay more neutral at the time. But when he comes up to me and introduces himself and says all of these things about how, I think Mike's being unfair about this, and I think, basically putting me in the position of having to stick up for Mike because he's such a nice guy, and why would we say any of these things? The audacity, he has to be like a psychopath to do something where he believes he is the good guy, knowing full well that he is actually at the National looking for people to authenticate things that he knows are fake, to try and scam people, to do all these things that are going to hurt everyone. And yet in his mind, he's the good guy. It just makes me sick that I actually did say some nice things about him at one point. So that when he came up to the National, that's what the interaction I had with him was.
So if there's a thing that's consistent with people who do this type of stuff, it's that they want to walk the fine line, right? Like, so his fake names were Juan, John, and Jonathan. Like, he could have easily been Eddie and Robbie and whatever.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But like, there's some sort of like adrenaline junkie thing about it. And then it's also that they can't stay away. It's like the fugitive type thing. Like
it sounds like a serial killer. That's what serial killers do.
Yeah, if he wanted to be anonymous, then he shouldn't have shown up at the National. But the thing was, I think he did like to start to get the fame that he was getting. I mean, he rose up quickly, and so that's, at some point, I think the fame drew him in. I mean, he was sitting at Ken Golden's dinner, and people knew who he was. And it's fine for people to know who you were, and that's Cardporn, right? And he really wishes to be anonymous, unless there's something else going on, and there was something else going on.
Absolutely. Well, and so you had, since that article came out, the initial one came out, you then came out with this one that came out yesterday, September 6th, about there were more incidents that were not previously known, at least not known to the public. And one of them began back in 2001 in Australia. Is that right?
It was June 2022 in Australia.
Oh, 2022. Okay, in Australia.
Yeah.
At a McDonald's is where this takes place.
At a McDonald's, in a McDonald's, a guy was trading a couple Michael Jordan cards, like patch cards, for a 1986 Fleer box.
It's somewhere worth around $150,000, right? Is that the
right?
Okay.
Right. Yeah, and the thing is, he set up everything as if maybe it was going to be a fraud. He had his wife stationed in the parking lot, saying, "Hey, there's going to be a guy in video of him. I'm going to record in my pocket. I'm going to record the conversation." And I got, see, that's the thing that also nailed him here, is that we pieced together all this stuff later. But like, I was able to say, okay, that's definitely Juan Garcia, right? And so that's the thing that did him in. Where we have all this video, we have everything else, so what happened was they traded, and then he had, again, we keep bringing up Audacity. He had a business card. His name was Jonathan Studdard at the time, and he had a business card. And the business card said the guy who he's trading with's phone number.
Oh my God. Wow. Oh my.
So the guy a day later looks, I mean, maybe that was unclear in the story because some people were asking me.
Yeah.
Imagine if you did $150,000 trade, Jesse, and you looked at the business card and it's your phone number at the end in where to contact him. Not only can you not contact him, it's like a whole FU situation. Like, I scammed you, and he knew right away. He got the chills, and he's like, "Oh my God, this is fake."
And he didn't look at I did not see that. Yeah, I didn't get that from the article. That is blowing my mind. Yeah. This person needs to go to jail. I don't like, that person shouldn't be out walking the streets. That is a psychopath. He had, and he's just stealing this guy's money. And
it wasn't just a story. It wasn't just a story. The guy shared with me his card. So 2 weeks later, when he goes to the National, or 2 months later when he goes to National, he sees Steve Hart, and he's like, "Is this BBCE wrapping fake?" And he's like, "No, it's real wrapping. It's just that if you look at the number, so you have the sticker, the BBCE sticker, and then you have the number on it." He goes, "I just looked at the number, and the number is actually the number that's on our exemplar on our website. So that's where he screwed up, because we don't have that number in the system."
Oh, wow.
And then he goes and looks, because the guy's in Australia. He goes and looks and sees that he sent something to Juan Garcia. He was sending him 1983 Topps Olympic rack packs. Those are the ones with like Muhammad Ali and just generic Olympic cards. Mm-hmm. Sealed, they cost $300. It's basically the cheapest thing BBCE sells sealed. And the reason he wanted those was because they were the biggest boxes possible. So it would allow him to place the box in and have the biggest surface area to work with.
Oh my! So you could reuse the wrapper, and it still look like it was like
as much wrapping as possible.
Wow!
Yeah, and then the other thing, of course, is that there's a video of them opening the box with Drake, and Ken Golden at one point says, "BBC Cardporn took the BBCE wrapper."
What?
So you're like,
that was in that video? Oh
yes.
My gosh. He could have used that wrapper to cheat someone else.
I mean, then there's also like there's also a 1986 box break with Juan Garcia and this Cherry Collectibles, who is one of the biggest guys in Australia. And they're opening, and Juan is clearly there, and it's kind of like, is this the box that then leads to, like, there's probably no Jordans in there, there's no stickers, there's no good cards in there.
No, absolutely.
And it's sealed. So is this the very box? I mean,
wow,
it's crazy. And then finally, and I got like 2 more minutes, so I'm sorry I have to run.
You're good.
But finally, the crazy. So now we get to he consigned 2 banks to pieces of art to ask for a reserve of $825,000. He had already tried to sell those for $1.25 million each. Didn't hit the reserve. Ken didn't like that one kind of had a 9/11, the plane crashing into like the warning sign. It looked like it was crashing into the Twin Towers. And then he brought it on to Heritage. Now, Heritage is like the 3rd largest art dealer in the world. So you'd think they would know how to do this.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've been in touch with Pest Control, who is the official kit. And one of his sites is this site called Art Fido. And on that media kit, it says that Banksy went on Art Fido to reveal a special video for something that he had done. And I emailed with the people at Pest Control, and they told me that is absolutely categorically true. So It's not looking good. Now, Heritage says that based on my inquiry, they're kind of taking a step back. But these things have been sold for $352,000 each. So how much has he, in the industry, we don't know who consigners are.
Yeah.
This is kind of precedent setting in that we'd have to shift back and be like, well, how much has he quietly consigned?
Well,
and what is real and what is fake? And if he faked these Banksies, he sure as hell could fake PSA cases.
100%. And the fact that he had like that Art Fido, that other account because his background is in art, right? Like he knows a lot about it, and I assume he knows how to restore. Yeah. What else is out there? I really appreciate you coming on, Darren. I know you don't have much more time, so just wanted to say thank you, and please continue to keep us posted on new stories coming out. I gotta think that we're gonna hear more and more stories about malfeasance.
I'm getting more tips. The whole industry wants to get them.
Perfect.
So yeah.
Well, yeah.
So, thank you,
man.